Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and on this stream we work on Django apps, we do Python stuff, we kind of just dabble with all sorts of different things, and this evening will be much the same. So if you're here, welcome, and you're welcome to ask me anything about Python, Django, or web development. Let me jot a note here in the chat so people can see that later. And I'd be happy to answer those questions that you might have. We're actually going to do a variety of things this evening, assuming we have time. But the first thing we're going to do is supercharge my editor configuration. So I've been spending the better part of a week, or maybe even two, just making improvements to my editor. And I am going to bring those edits and changes to this streaming setup live, doing it live, see how it goes, and talk through the changes that I've been making and show you how you might be able to improve your editor experience if you happen to use Vim. I know that's not for everybody, but that's what I use and it's what I like, so that's what we're going to try. So I guess I'll start by saying that I use a special repository, which I call .files. And this is not a unique idea from me, in case you're curious, but it's the idea of controlling your configuration. .files refer to like the things that are typically hidden files in your home directory, so anything prepended or prefixed with a dot is usually considered some kind of configuration file. So this repository is all about .files, and I want to say that GitHub even has a collection. Let's see, if we search for GitHub .files, I think there's like a whole GitHub pages thing about it. Yeah. So you can learn about the concept of why people might control their .file setups and what they do to do it. There are some examples that you can follow along, or there's whole tools that help you manage it. My setup does not require any complex tools. I wrote a little bash script that does like 99% of everything I need to do. And there's maybe 1% of actual manual configuration that I just haven't found a way to automate. But what we're going to do is use .files and run my little script that will bootstrap stuff and get everything ready to go, and then I'll talk you through the changes that I'm making. So I've already got my .files cloned because that's something that I've been using already for this computer. It's no different from my other computers. I'm going to stash the change that's here because I think it's going to conflict when I pull from my main branch. And oh right, I changed my main branch, so I need to do some kind of change the name from master to main, and there's some way to get the commands to, here it is. All right, this is the instructions we want. So if I run these, it should change my local clone to use a main. Whoops. No. That's not it. Well, not quite the start I want, but I can do a pull and I can switch the branch. I should be able to switch the branch manually. Check out main from origin main. That should do it. Cool. All right. This thing's up to date, and I have some untracked files that I'm going to get rid of because I don't actually need them anymore. In fact, I got rid of them, so let's go ahead and clear them out so I don't add them by accident, and get rid of both of those directories. And so now we're at this essentially the latest state of my .files. Within my .files, you can see here if I list them all out. Importantly, there's this bootstrap.sh file that does all of the work. And it's not a very long file. It only is, I don't know, underlines something, not very long at all, but does all of the setup that's necessary. So we're going to run this and get everything that's in there, and then I'll talk through some of the pieces. So let's try it out. I'm going to run bootstrap sh. And the first thing it's going to do is use Brew. Brew is the Mac OS bundler that's available. It's not part of Mac OS natively, but it's a very popular open source package that gets used to if anytime you need to do installation of some kinds of packages. And I use it to manage the things that I install, the developer tools that I have. So it's going to run and update. This first step might take a little while. My stuff might be a little outdated. So this auto update thing might be pulling a bunch of data down right now. In fact, we could probably even peek at it by looking at the activity monitor and see if it's actually doing stuff. Let's take a look and go over to the network usage, see what's going on. So once this gets going, it should show something. I expect there will be some kind of terminal thing here that's showing data being received somewhere. That might be this get remote right now, although it doesn't seem to be. So I've seen this before where the brew update will take longer than I anticipate, and then it's like it's actively trying to get a bunch of stuff, and then it takes too long, and then I end up killing it. So I'm going to let it run here for a minute and see if it will catch up to itself. While we're waiting, though, we can perhaps look at what the dot files are, what's in that bootstrap script, and see what's going on in the background as this thing is running. Let's start a new tab and take a look at the bootstrap script. So here we are in the bootstrap script, and it's going through this main function. That's what gets called at the bottom. This is a bash file, so these are bash functions, which are kind of weird, but it's a working setup here. And then I've added some little utilities that I have in this logging.sh things that gives me access to essentially a way to log out some informational messages. So the very first thing that's happening, or going to happen, is it's going to run this brew bundle command. And I have a brew file that is here that's at the root of my repository, which is essentially a manifest of all of the packages that I want to get going. Looks like it's, there it goes. So it finished doing its auto update, and now it's going through the bundle process and actually upgrading and getting all of the stuff that's in my brew file. So let's take a look at what's in there, and it'll allow you to get a glimpse into the tools that I say need to be installed. So I have this bat utility, which is like a better version of cat. Kind of colorizes any files you need to dump out that you might otherwise dump out with the cat program. Directory dir-env will let me use environment files within project directories, and it will automatically source any variables that it has in there. So it's a great way for quickly loading environment variable secrets that you might have. I've included Docker here, although that's not the right version of Docker that I want. I ran this at work and found out that I really probably want the cask version, which I'll talk about in a second. So I'm going to get that for now, but I would change that if I had noticed this before I started running it. FZF is a fuzzy finder. It's for quickly searching through file directories for different kinds of file patterns and stuff. Git, I don't know that needs much explanation, but it's a version control tool. I need to use Go for some of my configuration. I need to get Node, as in Node.js, for installing some other dependencies that I have for Python. And then here's the big change. I'm switching my setup full-time from Vim to Neovim. And I'll explain why more in a moment. But just this is the big one right here. Vim to Neovim. Just that one letter it seems minor, but it's a big thing. And then Starship is a new status line. So when you're looking at a terminal and you've got this line right here, it says sometimes called the status line, sometimes it's just called a command line. I don't know. But I'm using a program that will control the look and feel of that status line and be able to report various information about things it's able to detect. That's what Starship does, which we'll see more of. We have ripgrep, which is an amazingly fast version of grep. It's great. And then wget is a tool for getting stuff from the web. Additionally, I've got a couple of programs that I want to have available. Well, actually, this one's not a program. This is a font. So we're going to change the font of our terminal to this. And once we're done, then I use Flux to do my warm color lighting for late in the evening, so I'm not staring at very blue light. And then finally, I'm going to switch to my actual terminal from the standard terminal that comes with the Mac to iTerm2, which has a lot of powerful features. So those things are running in the background, and they're making sure that they're all available. So looks like it's upgrading a bunch of things that I maybe hadn't upgraded for a while since installing this Mac. And even though this Mac is basically brand new, it's a bunch of new upgraded packages. That's kind of the nice part about a brew file, is you're able to declare what you want, and it will just go get them. And I don't really care about the version. I just want whatever's the latest and greatest available. Now, you might care about the version if you had conflicts between tools, but not so much in my case. So I don't know how long this process is going to take to get all of these different commands, but let's go back to our Bootstrap file and explain more about the pieces that are in there. So here's the Bootstrap. So the first thing it does, like as I said, it's going to get that bundle file or install from that bundle. And then the second thing it's going to do is, actually this is even less relevant with modern Macs, but I used to have to switch from Bash to ZSH. But with recent versions of Mac OS, the default shell for a terminal is ZSH. So I had some code in here to check that it was, but if it wasn't, it would fail, and it would give me the command that I need to run in order to change my shell from the Bash shell to ZSH. ZSH is a really cool shell. It's got a lot of neat attributes of ways to do things that Bash just can't do. I think it's got better history management. There's a lot of stuff in there that I can't even enumerate them all anymore, but I remember after I switched from Bash to ZSH, I was really impressed. But partly I use it because of this tool right here, OhmyZSH, which is a layer on top of ZSH that allows you to add different plugins that you can use in your shell. So this gives me access to various aliases that I use all the time to interact with Git and different tools, and it's a pretty cool utility layer that you can add to the ZSH shell. All right, checking out over here, we're still upgrading and installing stuff. So let's keep going through the rest of this thing and see what's in there. And to do this, the way I'm doing this is I'm getting Git, or I've gotten Git from here in the brew file, and then I'm doing this clone operation in order to get the ZSH plugin. So by the point at which this thing runs, Git should be available because brew should have already installed it because it's in my brew file. Then I move into a mode where I go and I get stuff for Neovim. Neovim has its own set of tools and plugins. So I get the base editor, text editor, from brew, and then I need to have different plugins to make Neovim a better experience than the default experience. It's pretty powerful on its default configuration, but there's a lot more power that you can get from plugins. And so I have to get a plugin tool, which again is a bit of a bootstrapping problem. So the way to get this plugin tool is by doing a curl operation from GitHub to go get the plugin tool. And then you'll see later on how that plugin tool is actually used. After that step, I make some directories that are needed. Frankly, I'm not sure that I need these anymore. I think this is from a long time ago. Let's see. I don't have that command currently because I deleted all that Vim stuff. But if I did a git blame on this, you'd see that this pip directory is from ages ago. And I don't know that pip actually needs it. So I think I have it there to store a configuration file and where to store my pip cache. I'm not convinced that anybody actually needs that anymore. I probably should clean it up. I just haven't. Now, here's the secret sauce for the pattern that I use for my dot files. And it's this. The idea is I keep all of my dot files in this directory. I'm not copying anything anywhere except for a couple of directories that I have to create. Once I have those things created, I insert symbolic links. So this link command is a function that's actually at the top of my script here. So here's the link function. And what it does is it takes a source and a destination and then checks if those links exist. It does some cleanup if they already existed. And it creates a symbolic link. That's what the ln-s there is. And this is useful for if you're learning link. It's always the link command and the symbolic linking, which if you don't know what it does, is it just like allows you to have a reference to a concrete file over here and have a different, essentially like an alias to it somewhere else that the operating system will know how to resolve. So it will, anytime it looks to the alias, it'll actually go to the other file to get that. And that's a soft link in the operating system, in the file system layer. But some of the challenge with link is always remembering the order of which thing comes first and second. So what was useful, somebody said to me, or I read somewhere at some point, is to think of link as like the copy command. So you could have, in the traditional copy command, you have the source as the first thing you want to do and the destination as the second one. So link is the same way. I'm going to just write these in comments here to show how they're comparable. Because for some reason, link was an easy one to get backwards of which order should those parameters be. But if you always think of it as terms of source and destination, that has at least helped me a lot. So what I do is I essentially give all of my files that are in this repository, and then I map them to the place that the operating system and the tools that use them expect those things to be in. So my bash profile goes in home. I've got a pip configuration file. I've put the ZSH file in the home directory and the ZSHRC. And even you can even notice some advantage that I can take advantage of with this structure is that I can put everything related to ZSH in its own directory, but then when I do the symbolic linking, it kind of flattens everything out. So rather than having a big top-level directory, Heron Isore, welcome. I don't really understand what you've written there, but welcome. So rather than having a big flat directory that has all of these files that need to go in a certain order, Bella, welcome as well. It's good to see you joining in again. You can group things so that you can have like these logical clusters, and it leaves my .files repository in a bit of a tighter configuration. You can see I've got a Git directory, an NVim directory, a ZSH directory. That kind of stuff helps. It helps manage this. All right, so let's see. My setup failed, and Hironme, I do Django here. This particular stream is going to be a variety of things. I'm going to get to Django probably at the last portion of the stream, if we get to it at all tonight. So first thing I'm working on is a tools upgrade. And then I'm going to move into a Python exercise after that. We've been doing these in the stream where I walk people through some Python stuff of how to understand the language a little bit better by going through an interactive exercise using a website called exercism.org. And then we get into the SaaS stuff to actually work on my homeschool application that I've been building. All right, so looks like I already had Flux, and it didn't like that. So I'm going to uninstall Flux, which I think, can I do this? Move it to, no, not that way. I have to do it from the Finder. Deleting applications on the Mac has always been a weird thing to me. I need to drag this to, oh, come on. No, no, no. Don't make a short. Sigh. So I think I needed to drag it to the trash. Is there a trash icon here? Nope. And which means I probably need to unhide it from the trash, or unhide it so I can access the trash. It's so rare that I really delete things. So let's go to my preferences and dock. And for the moment, we'll do automatically hide and show the dock. Let's uncheck that. Now, I should be able to go to Flux and drag it to the trash. But it's already open because I use Flux all the time. So let's turn off Flux. Ugh, so blue. You all didn't see a difference, but I certainly did. Yikes. Okay, so flux is gone. Now, and I'm going to check that again. Oh, Mother Nation, I salute you with love. That's very cool. Where's that? What language is that from, Haronme? I don't know. I don't recognize where your name, your country of origin is. It's really cool. Let's run the Bootstrap script again. And this time it should go get Flux because it's going to get it from Homebrew instead of, because I downloaded Flux manually. I wasn't doing this before. And looks like it got it. So you can see how fast it went through the other things this time, because it was already detected that I was using them, so it didn't need to go get them again. So I should now have Flux back here, and it's going to say, "Are you sure you want to open it?" And I do. And I don't want it to notify me of anything. So Flux is back on. Okay, the warmth of that color is starting to return, and my Bootstrap script is running. Now, I had this problem when I ran it last time, is I tried to, so something I did with the script is after all the symlinks occur, I ran this headless mode. So Neovim is my text editor, and within Vim, you can do colon to run different commands. India, very good. Cool. Well, welcome to you. Within the editor, you can do commands using this colon, which will take you down to a command line at the bottom. If you've ever used Vim, this should be pretty familiar. So there's a headless option that is supposed to be able to let you run commands directly from your terminal. So that's what I'm trying to do, is essentially I'm trying to install my plugins without actually going into Neovim and running the command directly. So this should work, but I ran into this last time, and I think it may be because I'm trying to install some stuff, and maybe the installation might be happening in the background, but then the rest of my configuration immediately tries to use it, and there's no blocking operation there, so it complains about something. And I've seen this error before too, and it just didn't survive. So I'm going to kill it and try and run it again, because I tried doing that a second time and it seemed to do it. Yeah, same behavior. Okay. Well, we're going to let this stuff go this time and see how it goes and see if everything gets installed. The output is not as nice as I would like it to be. Like somewhere along the way it gets confused. So the stuff that was kind of going nice in line forgets about the new line characters. I don't really know why. But all of these things are being installed from my Bootstrap script and going in here and just running that stuff. Matthias, welcome. What's you got a puzzled look on your emoji there, so feel free to ask any questions if you got them. Right now I'm going through my editor and upgrading the whole experience, and walking you through my automatic script that does most of that work. So I think this might be done. The other thing I noticed about my Bootstrap script is that it kind of was hanging. It was actually never getting past this step. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. So I think what I'm going to do is kill this, and then we're going to get ready to actually try the new terminal that I was going to do, and there's some manual steps that I have to do. Yeah, I will definitely get to the stuff about Python for sure once I get the editor up, and you'll see why I'm doing all this. What I'm trying to do is make my experience better as a programmer, so I can be more effective, but also trying to give you some of the things that have been requested on this stream. Like for instance, almost universally, every stream I get, somebody will ask me why am I using a light theme? It burns their eyes. And I've explained it before. The reason that I use it is because I use Flux, so it's not as bright to me. But I'm going to switch to a dark theme, which you'll see, which should be easier on the eyes, I hope. So let's get started with the new terminal. And I'm going to open this. And we've got some configuration to do. So I'm going to plop it here exactly in the same locale as the last one, and then I gotta resize this. This is something that I haven't had to do anywhere else. I don't want any notifications. Notifications are the devil. They're not quite the devil, but they're annoying. And so I turn them off always. So here we are in a basic setup. Now, I still haven't figured out how to automatically configure iterm2. There's a big config file that is gigantic. It's a gigantic XML thing. I don't really want to have to do that. So I've got a bunch of little handwritten notes here about things that we can check. So this should only take a minute or two to go through them all. So we're going to go into preferences and set some things up. So the first thing is under the appearance tabs. Appearance tabs. I want to uncheck show activity indicator. I also want to uncheck this show new output indicator. So when you're using iterm and you have different tabs open, well, actually I'll show that. So here's a different tab. I just resized the window. That's not what I wanted to do. All right, I think that's pretty good. So one thing that iterm will do in its default state is if one of these other tabs is doing some different kind of output change, there'll be a blue dot, like over here or next to the name. I don't remember exactly where. I found that blue dot to be really annoying because I will have programs that will be changing quite constantly, and like Neovim will is configured to connect to Git, and anytime I would commit, it would check over in a different place, and it was just annoying. So Bella, I'll explain once again in a second what I'm doing. That's a setting that I turn off. For Bella, for you, so what I'm doing is upgrading all of my tools. I'm upgrading my Vim setup to Neovim. I'm upgrading my shell, my command line. It's already here. We'll see that if I go into the directory. We got some new stuff here that is not quite right yet. You'll see why. So we've got to configure some stuff for iterm2, which is my new terminal here. So let's press on with the rest of the configuration bits. So the next bit here is to say go into the profiles section, and we want to go to general, and every time I create a new tab, I want to open it up to the same directory that I'm currently in. Default behavior is the home directory, which is not what I want. So that's what one setting that I set there. And then we're going to go to colors. And I think the only thing here is I've got a color preset. So I'm looking for themes that would fit. And I put one in my .files directory. But all I did was pull this from the place where all of the iterm2 themes are defined. But I wanted it to be there consistently for me forever. So I put it in source control. So I'm going to use the Monokai remastered theme, and those will, it probably was subtle, but I haven't actually changed it yet. There we go. Yeah. So it's subtle changes. I'm using Mac OS. I think a lot of these things might apply to Windows, but they will certainly be different. I like iterm2 is probably not going to be a thing. You'd probably use what's the new shell called? I'm drawing a blank on it. You're gonna have some different shells and stuff, but I think the Neovim stuff and the editor stuff that I will have should be applicable everywhere. So I changed the colors, and then I'm going to change the font to be my Ubuntu font that I downloaded. That was in that brew file. So that changed the sizing a lot, and that's teeny tiny, I know. So we're going to bump it up to a respectable 14 point, and then resize this again. Hopefully I can stop resizing that after a while. And then finally, under the terminal section, I don't like the terminal bell, although my headphones are plugged in, so I would never hear it down here, but I still want to turn that off. I just find the terminal bell to be a nuisance. Okay, so that is all of... Interesting. that is all of my changes to that I had to get from that script. Now we're actually ready to like try things out and see how it goes. So I'm going to start by doing Neovim and see what if anything pops up. And here I am. It's a pretty similar setup to my previous stuff, but I've now got a whole new set of plugins and things that I've configured. So I have a lot of my same fuzzy finders and stuff, but they're slightly different technology, different sets of plugins that I'm using. So this one in particular is called Telescope. It's a kind of natively built into a plugin that's designed for Neovim, and it allows me to kind of navigate around stuff. So I can go back to that Bootstrap script. You can see I've got all of this defined now, and nice dark theme, which hopefully makes some of you happy. Okay, let's. I don't know. Are there any questions? Let me stop there. Does anybody have any questions or any things you want to see about this setup? Happy to answer them if you do. If not, we can move on to other things. That's fine too. I guess maybe I'll take a couple seconds to look at some Neovim stuff, and I'll drop a link. Actually, this might be more useful if you're interested and you want to look at what I've done. Overall, you can check out my .files directory. There's a lot of cool stuff that I've put in there that is just years of hard-learned knowledge. But what I tried to do specifically this time around was put more explanation about all the configuration that I have in here. So as you go through, you can see exactly what all of my plugins are used for. So that might be a useful resource if you want to get into Neovim. All right, and I'll leave it at that. So I'm going to take Bella's cue that like, all right, move on, Matt. Thanks, Bella. So let's move on to a Python exercise, shall we? Now I need to remember where I was. I guess it doesn't really truly matter, but we did something called making the grade, and let's move on to the next exercise. I've done some recordings of these as well, so if you want to learn some Python by example, I've got a new playlist up that you can check that out. We're going to follow along with exercism.org, and we're going to continue with their syllabus, which kind of walks you through a tree of different things that you can learn about Python. And we're down here somewhere. So we're on a tuples section. Look at the tuples. So this describes what a tuple is if you are unaware, but think of it like a list that you're not supposed to change. So it's an immutable collection of items in sequence. That's like a really complicated way of saying it's like a list you can't change. And you can iterate over it and do lots of other stuff that you would otherwise do with a list. So let's see what they have. So we're going to do the Tisbury Treasure Hunt. So I'm going to start by getting this going. Whoops. It's actually, I'm going to, by accident, go to that all the time. So let's get the right terminal up and get out of here and paste in our new exercise. And this should go download it to our exercism directory. So let's go over there and go into Tisbury Treasure Hunt. Now, here's one of the cool things that my new status line did. It immediately noticed that I'm running on Python and tells me which version. So it kind of gives me context of here's the project you're in, what language you're using. And I'm going to open a second tab here so we can have some side by side. And I'm going to start Neovim. Before I go too far in there, I need to grab this PyTest configuration right here. And I needed to create it in this project directory. And the reason for that is we want to be able to run PyTest. But if we don't have that configuration file, PyTest will be spitting out a bunch of warnings about marks that are unknown, and it's just kind of awkward. So here we are. We've got the Tisbury Treasure test with all the failing tests, which is a good start. And we've got our starting file, Oh, I gotta do a couple more things, sorry. So I need a formatter. I need to get black. I'm gonna install black. I also want to install isort. I'm gonna let those two things install. And this is stuff that's coming from Neovim. There's like a built-in tool now. This is called Mason, which lets you install all sorts of different tools right from within Neovim. It's pretty sweet. Okay, and let's get rid of these path statements. We're not going to need them. And y'all, I have no idea what this problem is. I've not looked at it before, so we're going to look at this fresh together. So that black thing did not run, though. I would have expected it to run. Why did you not run? Neovim tuples. Maybe because I was installing it for the first time. There we go. Okay. So I've got all my tools now going. Let's look at our problem and see what we're doing. So it says Azara and Rui are teammates competing in a pirate-themed treasure hunt. One has a list of treasures with map coordinates, and the other a list of location names with map coordinates. Treasures with map coordinates, location names with map coordinates. They've also been given a blank map. They've also been given blank maps with a starting place marked "You are here." All right. And we've got our data. Well, that's quite a set of data. So Azara has the list of treasures. Amethyst octopus. Set this coordinate 1. So the coordinates look like numbers and columns, perhaps. So let's read on to see what they say is each. But things are a bit disorganized. Azara's coordinates appear to be formatted and sorted differently from Rui's. No kidding. And they have been looking from one list to another to figure out which treasures go with which location. Being budding Pythonistas, that might be you, they have come to you to help in writing a small program, a set of functions really, to better organize their hunt information. Okay, so here's the first thing. We need to extract coordinates. So implement the getCoordinate function that takes treasure and coordinate pair from Azara's list and returns only the extracted map coordinate. All right, so to me, this looks like pull the second element out of the tuple. Now, we're still in the early problems on this exercise site, so it may be exactly that. In which case, the solution is going to be nice and easy for us. So we're going to be looking for... Bella, you're right. That isn't... So it's probably a common misconception. So like if you have a function that's my function, you can have a... So syntactically, like having this by itself is wrong. Like there needs to be a body to this function. And so you can, what most people will do is put a pass to show this empty. But you're absolutely correct, Bella, that if you have a documentation string, my doc string, that acts as something that's a valid part of the body. So you don't need a pass statement if you already have a doc string. I can't answer why they chose to do it that way. Maybe they didn't want to confuse people. I don't really know, but yeah, that's the way they did it. All right, so we're trying to solve the getCoordinate test, and we know that we need to return out the second item out of the record. So the record is a tuple, and it's telling us that it's a 2-element tuple. So it's going to have a fixed length of 2, but we don't really care. And you index it just like you would a list. So we should be able to do return record of 1, and that should give us the second element of the tuple. Now if we run this, I would expect all of those bottom set of things to drop out. And they do. Cool. Let's move to the next bit of the problem. All right. format coordinates. Implement the convert coordinate function that takes a coordinate in the format of a string, 2a, and returns a tuple in the format of 2 and a. Now we can't just call tuple on the string. Like if we did that, let's fire up the interpreter here. If we did a string that was 2a, we can't just do tuple on 2a. This would not work. It'll make a one element tuple. Oh, I'm wrong. Huh. What do you know? So, all right, maybe let's figure out why. Why was I wrong? I was about to mislead you all. So maybe the tuple, aha. So what's happening is the tuple constructor, which is just calling tuple, takes an iterable as the first item. But you have to remember that string can behave like an iterable. You can do a 4-character in a string. So the simplest solution then is to just take the string and call tuple on it, and that will break it up into the format where it's looking for, which is the 2 first and then the a. So cool. That's a nice simple thing to do. So return tuple of the coordinate. Whoops. So that should drop out all of that middle section of convert coordinate. Neat. Okay, compare records. This might be where it starts to get more interesting, more fun, hopefully. Implement the compare records function that takes a treasure coordinate pair. So those are the thing we saw in the step 1, and a location coordinate quadrant tuple record, and compares coordinates from each. So what is it saying? It's saying, all right, so this first record is going to be the kind of thing that Azara, was Azara, right? Yep, Azara saw. And then the second, it looks like it's going to be the kind of stuff that Rui saw. Quadrant, that's new. Oh, I guess it's not new. It was in the data. Just didn't notice it earlier. Okay. And from Rui's list, and returns the treasure coordinate location coordinate quadrant if the coordinates match. If the coordinates do not match, return the string not a match. All right, so observe that this is the first tuple and this is the second tuple. So we should be able to, they don't even want us to convert the coordinate. It's kind of weird to me that they don't want us to convert to a similar coordinate, but okay, get it. And this example works because this is 4b, and this coordinate system is in 4b. All right, so I think I got it. So I think we should be able to compare tuples. Again, let's go here just to confirm my thinking on this. If we have tuple 1 is equal to 1 and 2, and tuple 2 is equal to 1 and 2, then tuple 1 should be equal to tuple 2, because it should be comparing at the elements and not the memory address. So it's true. So our job here is to convert Azara's record to coordinate to the same version as Rui's record coordinate, and if they match, then we add these two tuples together, and if they don't, then we put out that not a match message. Pretty sure it was not a match, right? Yeah, not a match. So we're going to use our coordinate conversion mechanism, convert coordinate, to make Azara's coordinate version look like Rui's version. So we'll say if convert coordinate, and we know that Azara's is at the second element, so it's at 1. If that's equal to Rui's record coordinate is also at 1, then we want to return the two things added together. So it's going to return, it's basically going to create a new tuple that will be a fusion of these two tuples to create a new 5-element tuple. And if those aren't true, then we want to return not a match. Quatley, welcome. Good to see you. We're doing a Python exercise, and then we'll get into some SaaS stuff after that. So let's see. I would expect this. So this is now the compare records stuff. I would expect all of those to drop out if we did it right. Whoops. Compare records. Am I supposed to return a Boolean? Oh, return a Boolean. Wait, what? Combine. Did I skip a step? John, welcome. Happy holidays to you as well. Combine. This is like, what? Oh, this is the create record. Oh, Compare records. Compare the two. So is this like later in the problem? Or do they match coordinates? Have I just been skipping ahead, y'all? I'm sorry if I did. Implement, compare. Okay, I think I skipped one. My bad. Oops. Well, we probably have most of the elements that we need out of this one. If I was confusing you, I'm sorry. So implement compare records that takes the treasure and coordinate pair and the other pair and compares the coordinates from them. Return true if the coordinates match and return false if they do not. Okay. So this is essentially this if condition in a single thing. So let's take this, and I'm going to put this create record down here for a moment, and we're going to clean that up in a second. So we can change this to be a one-liner by saying return and then delete this stuff. So if we can compare that the two records match by checking their coordinates. And again, Azara's coordinate is at item 1 in her record, and Azara, I actually don't know if it's a male or female name. Their record, I guess. And then Rui's record could also is also at 1. So if this is matching, then that's all good. Okay, now coming down to create record, we should be able to use compare records and get rid of this, what we've got here. So let's switch it to compare records and just pass in Azara record and Rui record. Haronme, this is all Python stuff. I do pretty much exclusively Python in this stream. I will occasionally dabble with some JavaScript as I'm showing off some SaaS stuff, but mostly using Django, which is a Python web framework. So this is a Python exercise to get people familiar more with Python. And then when I get into the actual SaaS project that I do, it's a lot of Python. All right, let's see if I actually got this right this time. Okay, cool. We're down to a single test. So yeah, we're doing well. Let's look at the last thing that we're supposed to do. Combine. You're welcome, Haronme. So we just did the combination one, where we use the compare records to check for the Boolean state. And now notice, let me do this one other way that you'll commonly see, which I would encourage you not to do. Or if you see this, you should ask yourself, am I doing this right? Another way that you could have implemented this is instead of returning a Boolean like this, you could, and this is, you will see this a lot if you encounter enough Python code, you'll see somebody write an if statement and then do this. And then have an else statement and then return false. Now, this code works and it is totally valid Python. But I would argue, not argue, I would encourage you to think of it like as redundant, because this if statement is going to reduce to a true or false. And so then it would go to the return and return the true, which it just got from doing the comparison here. And then if it wasn't true, it'd go into the else branch and return a false. So essentially you're repeating yourself if you choose this pattern. And if they happen to be the other way around, like if you needed it to return false and then needed it to return true, then, then what you would do is you'd have the same thing, but you'd put a return, but you put a not in front of it. So that would be my recommendation, is to try and keep it as a one-liner. I think it ends up being clearer in the end if you can do this. But yeah, I see it all the time in plenty of code from professionals. Like I work with a lot of Python developers and that are of various experiences in their careers, and it's a very common pattern to see. And I don't know why folks don't simplify it down to that, but once you know, it's like, oh, anytime I see it now, I'm like, let's just make it simpler. All right, finally, let's look at this cleanup thing. So clean up and make a report of all records. Okay. So clean up the combined records from Azara and Rui so that there's only one set of coordinates per record. Make a report so they can see one list of everything they need to put on their maps. Implement the cleanup function that takes a tuple of tuples, everything from both lists, looping through the outer tuple, dropping the unwanted coordinates from each inner tuple, and adding each to a report. Well, that's very specific in what the format that they're looking for. I don't know why they did it all on a single line. That's kind of strange. Very hard to see as an example. But I presume that there's something in there that doesn't match. So looking at this, though, it's got that 5-element tuple form. And I think they want us to take out anything that is not a match. So both of those first two should be in there. Vintage, yeah, brass, because they match. They're both for this 4B and the 7E. Now let's keep looking. Crystal crab should also, oh, well, that's silly. They didn't give us anything that didn't match. Okay, well, whatever. Let's take a look at the return. The return is a string. All right, a little strange, but okay. So we need to basically do the comparison. If the second element and the fourth element are equivalent, then we want to keep it. What? Hold on. I might be messing up here. There's extra set of parentheses there. Why is there an extra parentheses? Where's that coming in? Oh, it's a tuple of tuples. Oh, you learned that. I'm not familiar with Code War Bellow. Is that a competition show? It sounds like. It sounds kind of cool. So, oh, I see. They've got this is a new line. Okay, I got it. I think. So I'm gonna do this maybe not quite the way they want, but we'll start that. So we'll call this the filtered group, and it's going to be a list to start. And we'll say for record group in combined record group. Each one of those is a 5-element tuple. Then we want, if we want to compare the coordinates properly, so we want to do convert coordinate. No. We'll use the compare record. We can't use compare record because that's expecting the whole thing. Or I think I see a different way we could do this. Let's bring up Python again. So I'm going to make a tuple. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So with tuples, you can also do, just like you can with lists, you can do the slice syntax. So we should be able to do a T1 like this, and that should give us elements 1 and 2 as a tuple. Or, I'm sorry, it's not inclusive, so we need to be element 2. So there we go, 1 and 2. Now maybe you can see where I'm going with this. And then 2 onward is 3, 4, and 5. So essentially it's like taking the combine and then breaking it back apart. And if we do that, then what we can do is use our compare records thing that we had from before, and then say record group. We're going to essentially recreate Azara's record and Rui's record as tuple slices. So I'm going to do :2 and then record group 2 : That should give us the breakdown that we need. If those things are true, then we know that we've got a match and we should add it to the filtered group. But we need to create a new filter group based off of the format that they're expecting. So they want the thing that goes first is the actual like treasure. So that comes from record group 0. And then we want the place, which is record group position 2. And then we want the last 2. So I guess we could do that a couple ways. So let's do filtered group append, and we can say what's going to be the nicest syntax? I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be one. How about this? Whoa, I don't want to get rid of all that stuff. Let's just call this record instead of record group. That will keep the lines a little shorter. Yeah, all right. Feel better about that. And now we can do record 0. So that's going to be, that should be the treasure. And then what's next? We have the actual location. So that was record 2, right? Location was second, and that was record position 2, 0, 1, 2. And I move my screen a bit higher to display. Am I hiding like a certain portion of the screen? Yeah, let me do this. I'm gonna bring in my OBS. It covers some stuff up. If I'm hiding some portion, I can try. If I go too high, Bello, I think then I lose some stuff. But yeah, y'all don't need to see my tabs. So that'll help. This is going to be a temporary setup, to be honest, because I'm making some changes for next year. So I've been wanting to get, I hope that helps a little bit. I've been wanting to get a second monitor, which I'll have here, so I'll be able to actually see everything that you all see, plus the chat, and be able to resize this window. Essentially, I want to devote this entire window, which like I have one monitor that's showing everything, right, having everything. So I keep some stuff off to the side. But it's not ideal. So essentially I want to have an entire full screen display. I'll make the text size bigger because I'm sure it's probably a little too small on some of the streams. and then adjust that, and then have all of like my extra OBS stuff, Open Broadcaster Studio, if you're not familiar with what that is, will be over here, which will let me see what's going on and be a better streamer. But that's next year. But I'm, in the meantime, going to be finishing this studio. So I'm currently in my basement. That's a piece of paper behind me that is making a white backdrop. And that's all going to change. So I'll be taking probably a month or two off from streaming while they finish the basement, and then I'll be back in here and hopefully improving the setup. Anyway, that's a little like inside baseball of what's going on, but that's my plan. So let's finish this with record 2, and then we need, what else did we need from the problem? We needed the coordinates and then the color, and that was at, the coordinates that we want anyway are at 3, and then the color's at 4. Record 3, record 4. So that's our tuple. Santa did not bring me the monitor, John, I wish. But I do. So anybody who gives contributions, which I don't expect anybody to, so I make a little bit of like advertising money off of YouTube and stuff, but I slowly stash that away and build up a little pool of cash that allows me to periodically invest in this stream. I basically pour all this money, like my lights, my better computer, the monitor that I have, better camera, all sorts of stuff is from contributions from people that are willing to do that. You can join them if you're interested at Patreon. But again, no pressure. I'm not like, this is not my day job. This is just me trying to give back in some small way. But from that little cache of money, I will be buying a second monitor just like the one that I currently have, and ultimately we'll get a nicer setup and desks and maybe better colors, and actually invest in some of the software stuff that makes better transitions. Like there's, I don't know, given enough time, I think I can make a somewhat professional looking setup. But in the meantime, you get what you get. All right, let's finish off this problem. So we've got this record in the format. So now we've got this 4-element record, which is what they're looking for here. Now, what we can do is be observant in the way that they are producing this. So the string representation, I think this is what they're doing. So if we have a tuple, let's call this one T2, and it's a tuple of strings. I think hi or hello world. I think we're able to take advantage of the formatting that comes from Python. So if we do the string representation of T2, that should give us, yeah, the single quote style that they want to show. So what they're trying to show here is that take a build the right tuple, and then call stir on it, and join it with some new lines. Or actually, they're not even joining it. So this is not optimal, but okay, whatever. They're just adding a new line to the end of each thing. So there's an extra new line here that I'm not crazy about that. So we'll do it in a slightly different way. So in that case, forget the whole list thing. Let's just add, I am doing this from my home. This is the basement of my home, Harunme. So let's just call this result. I don't know. A terrible name. No, let's call it report. They're saying this is a report that we're generating, right? And now we can do here, instead of appending, we can take our tuple and we can do report. Or let's give this a local name, because I'm going to use this for an F string in a second. I don't like any of the names that I'm coming up with in my head. I'm going to go with combined. I can't think of a better name. Doesn't really matter. So now we've got our tuple that is the combined result that we care about. And then we're going to take to the report and do a plus equal operation on it to add a new string to the report. And we're going to use an F string, and say combined. And so this, by using an f string in this way, it should call the stir method on the tuple. And I'm going to put the new line at the end. And then finally, to finish things off, we should be able to return this report. And I'm hoping that, whoops. Hey, cool. So hopefully this made sense of we compare the coordinates, make sure we're filtering the right set. And if they are equal in coordinates, then we want to keep it for our combined report. So we build the new tuple that is in the format that they expect it to. That's just essentially a manipulation of pulling out certain elements from the other tuple and repackaging it into the existing tuple. I guess well, now let's look. Now I'm curious. Could we have deleted an element out of the tuple? Like, I know tuples are immutable, but could we do a delete and get a copy? I don't remember. So let's take a peek. Go to the documentation in the standard library, and we want to look at tuples, sequence types. This should have documentation on tuples. These are the mutable sequence types, is like lists and stuff. There's tuple. Tuple implements all of the common sequence operations. Well, I don't think we can delete from a tuple. Or I know we can't, but I don't know if that you can delete and say, give me a new tuple that has everything but the item that's deleted. Thanks, Bill. I do try and get better every year. Slowly improving over time. Anyway, so my brain was going to like look at this thing. Like it's really the combine. It's the same as the record. The only thing that we're doing differently is that we're taking out the record 1. But let's look what happens if I try. Like if I go to Python and I'm going to create our tuple, trusty tuple again. If I try and do, I don't even know what this would be, del t1? Yeah. So tuple object doesn't support item deletion. Oh, yeah, Harame, this is no problem. So I guess the context is the application that you're about to see. So we're about to get into SaaS stuff in a moment once we're done with this Python exercise. Is I built a homeschool application for my family. I homeschool, my wife does the homeschooling for our 2 children. And I built an application that helps her with the scheduling, that uses my knowledge of web frameworks and web development to give her the tools to run the homeschool for my kids effectively. And it makes her life a little better. So I brought some work home, but it is for the benefit of my family. So it works out for everybody. I was hoping that there was some kind of method that I could call on this tuple to create a new tuple. Can I do can't even do like a slice? Because the only other way I could think to do this, yeah, we could, but it would look kind of gross. So let's call it T2. It's going to be a slice of T1. So that should just be the first element. Plus, well, maybe that is better. Whoops, that was not it. Should be, this should be, hold on. T1:1 should just be a 1 element thing, right? Yeah. And we want to not include T2 or element in position 1. Sorry, it's with the indexing, it gets hard to speak about this in a clear way. So now, all right, that's not bad. It's not great, but it might look a little better than this. So let's comment that out for a second and then say combined or yeah, I'll use the same name, terrible name, but is going to be record, and I want to include the first element. So it's the same as that what we just saw. In fact, it's going to be exactly the same. Record from 2 onward. So that should cut out the 1 element. It does. Now, the question is it better? Like, there's only 4 items in our tuple. So there's some part of me that's like that thinks that the one at line 57 here is a bit more explicit and could be seen as clearer. Whereas this is like, you have to know that I'm doing a slice here and I'm doing a slice here, and you have to remember the tuple, the slicing rules for what's it going to include and exclude. All right, I think I'm convincing myself that it's probably better to be a bit more explicit, which is kind of in line with Python's philosophy of favoring explicit over implicit. Okay, so we've got our problem. The tests pass, so I think we're ready to submit this. Let's say exercism submit, and this is the tuples file. So there's our solution stuff. We can go, whoops, should be able to click here, go directly to exercism. It's already passed, so they've already run it against the tests. Here's my solution in there, the thing we just saw. So no shocker there. Let's take a look at a couple of community solutions and see if anybody did anything clever and different. And then we'll move on to some SaaS stuff. All right, so I'm going to just take the top 3. I usually look at like who's actually starred this stuff. There aren't a ton of responses on these, but so picking the top 3 is a reasonable thing to look at. All right, so let's look at Zardian here. Same solution for get coordinate, same solution for convert, same solution for compare records, same solution for create record. And then, okay, they went with the thing that I opted not to do, which is a slice and a slice. Otherwise, the same. And I guess because they use that slice and slice in the addition, they could then wrap that as a string in one line there. So they didn't use a format string like I did. But not a lot different from what we did. Let's see Elkarn 23's solution. Same. Oh, that's different. So they went the other direction and combined Rui records into the string version from Azara. Okay. And they turned it into a one-liner. I don't like this. I think it's too hard to read. It's too wide. But it works. And then they did the slice thing too. I'm going to be the odd one out who did the actual explicit every element, huh? And then Busy York accessed at the 1, did tuple. Is that what we did? Oh, okay. So rather than calling convert coordinate, they skipped the function call and just did the tuple. It's effectively the same. This is actually going to be a little faster because it avoids a function call, but it is repetition of the implementation. So if the coordinate conversion ever got more complicated, then this may not work, whereas the other ones could. Like you could put the logic all in convert coordinate. Now, for this case, it's so simple it doesn't really matter, but that's just something to observe. Same thing with a one-liner for create record. And they did this in a join with a list comprehension. Yeah, for me, I look at this and this starts to smell like, I don't know if you've all have heard of this term, but code golf. Code golf is the idea where you try and write some code in the smallest number of characters or the fewest number of lines possible to achieve a solution. And while this works, there's nothing wrong with it. I think it borders on like, this is complicated enough to read. There's a lot that your brain has to process. So there's sometimes advantage to breaking something up into lines just so you can tell a bit of a story. Say like this, first I did this, then I did this, then I did this. You don't always have to do that, and clearly this person made it work just fine. But that's my gut reaction when I see this. It's like, ooh, that's too much. But it's all taste, so it's just my personal taste. Okay, let's go and mark our solution as done. No warnings or anything, right? Yeah, no warnings. So we can go back to the overview and mark it as complete. Cool. That was our Python exercise. And we've got some time. Let's go look at some actual SaaS stuff and see what's going on. All right. Is this list up to date? I have not refreshed in a while. Aha. I got a customer request directly from the customer. This is my wife. So let's read what she was asking for. She wanted to see a feature that is the number of school days remaining, so that she can tell how many days of school are left. Okay. We can do this. So it should be a pretty straightforward calculation, and it's just a question of where to put it. I think I did talk to her briefly about where this could go. Let's look at the application and look at the page where I think it should belong, and then we can decide on how to actually implement it. So I want to go to the projects section of my home directory and bring up the homeschool app. Pull anything that I might need to do there. And do I have anything to pip install? Is it C flags? Yeah. I'm going to let the, oh man, source vn bin activate. Now let's do the C flags thing. Let's make sure all of our packages are at the latest versions. Sure, let's upgrade pip, why not? So it won't bother us with that message in the future. Great. Let's start up the web server. And let's go to the web server. So here's the application. And initially she had requested like on, she said, I would like to see on the school year page. And I chatted with her. So the school year page is over here. This is where the school year is. It defines like all of the courses that are part of it and what the, if they're actually, I don't have a lot of test data in here, but let's say we wanted to take off January 2nd, because that's when we would celebrate the New Year's for this hypothetical school year. We could add a break for 1/1/23, ends on 1/1/23, and we don't even need a description. Whoops, not 1/1. Wrong day. That would be the day, but the day that would observe it would be on the Monday. So a school year can contain the days that have already passed, plus any days ahead, plus any breaks that might be there. So she wants the number that is whatever the total is. But this is not as easy of a calculation as you might think, because the school year itself can have a variable number of days that the school can run on. So while I know the way that my home runs, sad reality. Oh yeah. Bella, I agree about the Python thing. Yeah, code golf is tough. So the reality for schools that might be using this is that some school might say, we only run our school on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and they don't do Tuesday. So it's not an easy calculation to just say, it's 5 times however many weeks are there and all of that sort of stuff. Around me, I don't know anything about iOS or Android applications. Cassandra, like what you're describing, though, let me take a look for you, just because I'm now curious. The Cassandra I know of is with 2 S's, and it's Apache Cassandra. I don't know if that's what you're referring to. If you're referring to some other Cassandra with 1 S, let me try that. I'm going to search for it. Cassandra software. Yeah, it's returning me the version with 2 S's. So I'm going to assume that you're talking about this. I honestly I can't really answer you fully, because there's two aspects of this. I've never used Cassandra in any professional capacity. I do know that it's a NoSQL database, and so that immediately fills in some thoughts in my head of what that means. And let's go read the Wikipedia page for a second to make sure that I have this in my head and I'm not pigeonholing it. I'm not thinking it's not like a Mongo. It's more like for analytics, I think. Similar to Dynamo. Okay. So it may be a good tool to use if you're asking, is it a good tool for data storage in an application? The answer is possibly, but it depends on what you're building, and it depends on the tool set that you have. So the other part of the question I can't really answer for you is that I'm not an iOS developer and I'm not an Android developer. I've dabbled with Android in the past, but I kind of made a decision in my career of how much should I invest in mobile technology versus other technologies. And I opted more towards the web technology stack and kind of back-end services stack. So I don't have enough experience to make a really educated statement about whether iOS or Android works super well with this. So I would say, if I were in your shoes and I was writing a mobile app, I would probably, first thing I would try, assuming you have some experience, is do a little experiment. Not something that you plan on actually putting on a market somewhere, but actually see if you can get a little demo application going with Cassandra. And I don't know is there a vendor that offers Cassandra? There might be a vendor like AWS might even offer you a Cassandra kind of option. And if you're just doing a little demo app, I would almost guarantee that something like that would be at a free tier where you could play around with it. If you have to set up Cassandra, I don't know. That might be quite an endeavor to get it going. So me in your shoes, I would set up a little demo, see if the library support within iOS or Android is actually good. If you actually work with it and you're I really like this, or if it's difficult, and make a determination based off of that. So it sort of gets down to what is the app you're trying to build, and what's the data you're trying to model. A lot of the data that I try and model tends to be very conducive to SQL databases and schemas and all of the benefits that come from that. But I will not deny that there are certainly use cases in the world that are great for NoSQL kind of stuff, where you're storing more documents and those kind of things. So that's my take. Hopefully that was helpful for you. All right, coming back to the school year thing. The complications of this is the number of days in the school year is perhaps complex because every school year is a little different. And then you throw in the number of breaks that are there, and that calculation is not necessarily super easy. The other aspect that I talked to her about was the location of that data. And she said she wanted to see it on the school year. And I asked her if it's like, well, would it be okay if it was on this page? There's a forecast page. And the forecast page is designed to forecast the school year. So it seems a very fitting choice for how much school is left. Because what it's able to do is it runs all the calculation already of what is the last possible day based on the number of tasks that are assigned to that particular course, and how many days are left. So I think this is where I would like to put this information. It's probably going to be some kind of like fact, like this is kind of the fact section that I have about the school year. So I will probably do like a paragraph of saying something like, the school year has, what would be the copy? This school year has 55 days left and ends on August 15, 2023. So let's see if we can do that calculation and then write the tests for it to make it go. All right, so I'm going to start with Neovim, and I need to trust this file. This is the first time I've run this repository with this Neovim setup, so ignore what I just did there. I had to load something. So we want to go to the forecast view, and I don't remember where that is. I bet it's in the schools section. Yep. So we have a school year forecast. This is the view that we're going to work from. And it's calling this forecaster thing. We probably want that as well. Forecaster. I don't know what's in there. Or project dates about school years and courses. Like, it's been a long time since I've touched this code, y'all, so it's going to take a little bit to like load up in my head what we're doing here. Maybe I should take a detour first, though. I noticed the other day, or I noticed this at work, frankly. So there's, yeah, let's stop for a second. Let me comment on some stuff. Actually, nope, it could just be I didn't load up my virtual environment. All right, I promise, hopefully the last time that I have to do that. Oh, good. Not complaining. So I didn't have my virtual environment loaded up, so it didn't know where my Django package was because it wasn't on the path. And hopefully, once this is all loaded and done analyzing, then it won't give me error messages. Okay, so the other thing we need is the schools views file, which had the forecaster right here. Okay, back to where we were a second ago. So the way the forecaster gets used is it has a method to get the last forecast date for a student for a course. So if we are calculating the end of the school year, I think this forecaster is probably not what we want. Because the forecaster is trying to look at it's trying to answer two separate but similarly related questions. This forecaster class is saying, given a student and given the course load that they already have and given all of the tasks that the educator has put into School Desk, let me tell you how much content you have until you run out of content for the year. And you can see that on that page. If we go back to the page and look at it. Whoops, I stopped. Let's start that up again. So it's projecting out, and it's saying, look, this school year, even though the school year, I think it said August 23rd ahead, is the last content that I have in here is only going to last until January 10th at this pace. So that's not much. Whereas the question that I think my wife is trying to get an answer for that she can't currently is not saying like, how much content do I have now, but how many days do I have left? It's sort of the inverse of like, what's the capacity left in the school year to put in new content? And ideally, well, maybe not ideally, you might want to end a little early or set some breaks, but in a perfectly scheduled school year, the number of tasks would line up exactly with the end date, the projected end date of the school year, with everything getting done just right at that time. Probably not realistic for how real life would go, just on when things happen, but that's just an idealistic view of the world. So what we need to do is not be calculating this against the student, which actually kind of makes the problem simpler. All we really care about is the calculation of just what is the total available number of school days, and then how many breaks are there, and do the math, and that's the number. And so we can then just kind of set that and then also show the end. So I think that's what we're really after. So the school year forecast is going to get an additional piece of data that will go here that is unrelated to this section of student info that's going to be supplied. It's going to be a new piece of context. Now, maybe you think the feature is the most anticipated feature? Cool. So maybe the forecaster might be able to use the data that we have, although it doesn't take any input arguments, and then it calls a method. It's really kind of just a bucket for some instance data. Oh, sorry, that's not even an accurate statement. It's a bucket for a set of functions, and the calculation kind of calls on different pieces. So yeah, let's see. I'm just looking through this and seeing if there's a way that I can reuse any of this code, or if I need to refactor something. And there are probably some methods that are on the school year that we might be able to use as well. So let's take a look at the school year model. Oh, got some stuff popping out now. My language server is detecting some things at this point and starting to report on some errors. This is a change that happened when I switched to Neovim. And I think we can resolve some pieces of this, like this one right here, by getting some Django type hints. I wonder if I should take that detour now. Well, I'm going to press on for a little while, and if it drives me crazy long enough, then I'll start to address these. Because seeing these E's and H's that are here, I still don't even know what H means. I think it's just like a hint, maybe. Is annoying me. I want that stuff to be, I want that gutter, that sidebar to be clean. Okay. So I just said I was going to look at the model. So let's look at the schools model. And we want to look at the school year and see if there's any model that we can, or any model method that can help us out here. Get task count in range. No, that's not it. Get next course day. Get the next course day after the provided day considering breaks. So this is considering breaks part is the stuff we want to think through. But it's not quite. So whatever solution we're going to use, it's going to use this isBreak method, which I had above. Whoops. Still getting used to it. So I've got now the ability to go to the implementation. No. All right. John, good question. All of the holidays that are in there are inserted by the user at this point. So I don't have any state or government holidays or like calendars. I can't just say import this calendar of holidays and stuff. That would be cool, but I don't have that ability right now. Good question. I got these new cool powers that I don't know how to use. So there is a way that I have a shortcut that will take me right to the implementation, but I don't know what it is. So y'all are gonna learn with me. Maybe useless information to you, but I'm gonna go into my configuration here and find it. So what I've unlocked with Neovim, I can at least talk through that part, is the ability to use the language server protocol. This is the same thing. So if you use VS Code and you have the Python extension involved, the way that works, and that gets like all the smart hinting and all the stuff that seems to know about Python, is this, at the core of it, is something called LSP. LSP. And that's the language server protocol. And the language server protocol was a really great idea. The idea is every text editor in the world that is going to be used for programming needs to have some, if it's going to be good anyway, it needs to have knowledge of how to work with a particular programming language and provide semantic information about what's making, about what knowledge is available. You know, is this a method? Is this a class? Is this a variable? Whatever the case might be. And in the past, the way that was done for a really long time was every editor would have to build in their own support for every language. And so if you wanted to use Vim and you wanted to use Python, you got to whatever syntax highlighting was available in that was built into Vim, and then you looked for plugins that were Vim specific. The stroke of genius, I would say, is that somebody realized that this is dumb. We shouldn't have editors have to figure out how to rework with languages every time. Like Vim versus VS Code versus Atom versus, you know, IntelliJ, or, you know, like whatever your editor happens to be. Wouldn't it be nice is if all of those editors were able to rely on the same server implementation to give them cool information about a programming language. And that's where this LSP concept was born. Maybe it pre-existed this, but this is where I first know it to be successful. And the idea is pretty simple. The idea is we're going to make a protocol that sits between the editor and a programming language. And so some kind of server, some other process, will act as the thing that provides all of the semantic information about a language. So information about Python, information about Lua, whatever language you happen to be working with. And it can communicate that to the editor. And so the editor then knows how to take this information and present it to the user using some common patterns. So the communication between this language server and the text editor is the language server protocol. And what that does, the nice part of what that does is now Neovim doesn't need to go and directly implement every single language in the world that it wants to support. Instead, it implements the protocol. And so it's able to plug in to anybody's version of a language server. So if there's a Lua language server, Neovim can talk to that, but so can VS Code. And so it breaks apart this problem of everybody has to implement every language, and now it's everybody just talks the protocol and can speak to all the same number of languages. And the true benefit of all of this, or one of the big benefits, is that all the investment can be made to make those language servers amazing. And then the editors can work to make their implementation of connecting to the protocol amazing. And if both things end up being amazing, then you get this end result where everybody wins. That you can use VS Code, I can use Neovim, and we get the same quality of Python introspection or whatever features are coming out of the language server to make our editing experience better. So that's the language server protocol, and it's a feature that I now have available that I didn't really have. Yeah, it's standardization in a nutshell. You're exactly right. Thanks for distilling down my rant into one word, John. Thank you. So anyway, all that's there, and I didn't have all that stuff before, but now I need to know like the keys. So I've got all of the protocol that is kind of mapped in Neovim to certain functions that I need to call, and then I've got them tied to different leader mappings, which is what's here. This is why I brought up this file. So I've got GD. So that's the thing I was typing GR, but that was going to the references. So I really wanted to do was I need to remember a go-to definition. So GD, yeah, there it is. Takes me right to the definition. Okay. Well, a long-winded way of getting there, but that's what I want. So I think my calculation stuff of calculating how many days are in there is going to have to use this isBreak thing as part of that. So we want to essentially look at all of the days that are between now and the end of the year and get the break. But I think there's a method that will do this. I've got to believe it's in here. So this is getting the count of tasks. Okay, is this the right thing? Just kind of misnamed maybe? This might be it. Get the task count for a course and factor in any breaks. Ooh. Oh, okay. So this problem we're not trying to answer is maybe not super easy to answer. Okay, why is this hard? A little while ago, I just told you that a school year can be filtered so that it only runs on certain days of the week. Well, that's not the complete story. The complete story is that courses within the school year can also be further sub-filtered. So a course, maybe a school year runs Monday through Friday, but a particular course only runs Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So 3 days out of the 5 days a week. So the true end of the year, calculating all that stuff out, is really what has the longest amount of time for a particular range. So this is trying to figure out how many tasks would be in a given range, which isn't quite what we're at. Again, it's filling in like what is there. Like this course does run on a particular date, so you can count it as a potential thing, but it assumes that you are picking the course that runs on the most dates. So I think we could use this, but if we're going through a school year, we'd have to find the course that runs on the most days. Assuming we found that, then using this function and picking the end date of the year would give us the right answer for how many days are left in the school year. Now, I'm wondering if there's any weird negative consequences to that. Probably not, because I think what would happen, I'm wondering if I say that the end days, if there's this many days in the school year, and a customer is trying to plan out how many more tasks can I run for a course. So the answer says, let's just pick a number. Let's say there's 50 days left in a school year. And that's calculated from a school year that has 10 weeks of school left, and there's a course that meets every day of the week for 5 days a week. That's how you get to 50. So the number it reports is 50. But if there's a course within that school year that only runs on 1 day of the week, then the number of possible days available for that course is only going to be 10, right? Not 50. So I think it's kind of unavoidable that there's going to be some kind of mismatch. You either err on too low and you don't report enough school days, or you err on the true maximum amount, and then you could give a false sense of, we have enough time to do all these tasks left for a school course that may only meet a portion of that remaining school year. I think that's just a reality of the nature of courses of different meeting schedules. So I'm okay with looking for the one that meets the most. And I do think that this function on the school year does feel right. Now the question is, how do we quickly find the course that meets the most often? Or am I still thinking about this wrong? Maybe I should take out the notion of course altogether and just think about a similar function that has a similar kind of calculation, but doesn't factor in the course or the student or anything like that. I think that's probably the wise way to go. Because then we have, if we go back to the definition of isBreak. So when the student is none, we get all of the breaks. So we don't want to calculate specific, because breaks can be just for specific students. So one student, I have 2 children. My elder child could have a day off or a field trip or something, when my younger child is going to have a school day, and vice versa when they have, summer camps and those kind of things that happen. It's very common. So that doesn't feel right to actually require the student. So I'm thinking that I want a method that is going to be similar to this, but not exactly the same. Sorry, getting a little uncomfortable and have to move my position. Okay, I'm going to stew on that for a little bit. Let's take a detour. Let's see if we can get rid of these e's that are here, or at least improve the situation, and then get back to the actual problem. How does that sound? Let's talk about why are we seeing these. So as I said, the language server protocol is what is able to report on a lot of this information. So I have a language server, and we should be able to see it, in fact, if I bring up a terminal. And let's look at a PS. That's the list of the services with a -EF. And if we grep through here, we should be looking for one called Pyrite. Yeah, there it is. So when I started up Neovim and I went to a Python file, Neovim is able to say, oh, you want a Python file. Let me connect to a Python language server to be able to get you that information that you want. So I know I can't provide it for you directly, but I know that a Python language server can, so let's get that going. When that first happens, and Neovim doesn't find a language server available, it actually starts up a Python language server process and runs that in the background. So the one that I'm using is called Pyrite, and it's actually the same one that powers VS Code, sort of. In VS Code, there is PyLance, and PyLance wraps Pyrite, I think. Let's confirm that, because we can. Sure, why not? All right, PyLance is the extension So Pylance might be like the VS Code side, like more like the client, but then it gets powered by Pyrite, which is actually the tool doing a lot of the IntelliSense work. Yeah, it sort of tells you the same things that I was telling you. It's like it makes all of that. Microsoft likes to call it IntelliSense. That's, I think, their it's probably even trademarked or something for their Visual Studio, not just Visual Studio Code, but their classic Visual Studio IDE, which is a different product. Oh, I didn't know this. I didn't know it was an homage to Lancelot. That's cool. Anyway, so Pyrite is an open source technology that they have made available that I'm hoping that goes right to GitHub. And it's a language server. Well, they call it a static type checker, but it also functions as a language server and does a bunch of checking. And then Pylance uses that. So I'm getting a lot of the same stuff, same information that any VS Code user using the Python extension would get, which is pretty cool. But that's where it's running. That's where all that information is coming from. So, oh, that's an interesting question, Hiranme. How do you connect the Python language with algorithms? Are you just referring to I'm guessing you're referring to implementing like general purpose algorithms, the kind of things that you would see on coding interviews or reading the algorithms book. Oh, I hate that book, but some people love, was it Corman? It put me to sleep. All right, I just didn't get it. I didn't like it. Algorithms by, oh, come on. I thought it was Corman. Am I making that up? Yeah, this book. This was so dry to me. Whatever reason, my brain does not dig into algorithms in a way that I find fun. If this is what you're referring to, like, I don't know. A lot of stuff that you can find on Wikipedia on a particular algorithm. And Wikipedia is actually a great source of information about algorithms. It's not a great source of information about everything, but the algorithm stuff is pretty strong. You'll often find a bit of pseudocode. And Python has a reputation for being a language where it kind of functions pretty close to pseudocode. Like the pseudocode that you will find, and pseudocode meaning like false code, or code that's close but not actually specific to a programming language. The implementations that you'll find on a Wikipedia page or whatever will often be close to working if you just kind of copy and paste them. That's not guaranteed to work. There's syntax things you have to work through. But that is a way to use algorithms. I'm not recommending you do any kind of cheating on an interview. I think people see that pretty clearly, especially if they ask you any questions about your algorithm. So you have to actually understand the things, which takes work. There's no way to get around it. But yeah, it's one of my least favorite parts about working as a software developer is anytime I ever even think about going for a programming job, I have to brush up on my algorithm study and be ready for algorithm questions in interview questions with it, which I think is ridiculous. And would love to see that changed, but I don't know how to change it. Okay, so what do I want to do with this? The reason that this is failing is Python is, or specifically Pyrite, is seeing school year as a type object. It's seeing it as a class. And what it can't deduce, sometimes you can, but not in this one. It comes from this day of a week model, which is, if you go to that, it gets right down to it. It's a model class. I'll look at the school one because it's easier. And being a Django model, a standard Django model has an objects attribute, class attribute added to it. And that attribute is the Django manager. Manager is basically the interface for how do you actually query into the object relational mapper. And so it doesn't know what to do with that. It doesn't know, you can see here, like we've got the admin email, and Pyrite isn't able to figure out what this is. And the reason it can't figure out what this is because foreign key is this really, it's a descriptor. I'm not going to explain, or I'm not going to have time to get into what Python descriptors are, but descriptors are a really powerful way to do some work at declaration time. So Pyrite is seeing admin as a foreign key object and can't tell that it actually has this deeper connection to an email attribute. It doesn't make sense. So it says, like, I'm not sure what that is. Now, if we can teach Pyrite a bit more about the types that are available, then there's a chance that some of this stuff will actually go away. I don't know if it will all go away, but I'm at least hopeful that something like, maybe not a foreign key, because there's a couple layers of indirection there that I could see even type hints can't resolve. But this one right here, I would expect this to go away, because type hints on models would be able to illustrate to Pyrite that, hey, there's this objects thing here, and it's actually going to be a manager on all models. So what we need to do to attempt to resolve this is get the Django type hints package. So I don't know what the name is. Django types? Is that it? I think this is probably it. Well, it might actually be django-stubs. I'm going to compare the two. Django-stubs. MyPy stubs for Django. Let's see what they say. Let's see if anybody's got a comparison out there. Django stubs versus Django types. Certainly we can at least compare like the popularity of one or the other versus the other. Stubs 301, types, oh, it's a fork. Do I use algorithm bubble sorting in my school desk project? No, I don't use bubble sort. I don't think anybody should probably. And bubble sort's the kind of thing that it's an academic thing to like learn about. Honestly, if you asked me to write a bubble sort algorithm right now, I would fail. I think it has something to do with swapping positions between things like over and over again. It's certainly not the most efficient algorithm for doing a sort. And in fact, there's a really interesting GIF out there, and it shows different. It's a comparison of different sorting algorithms, because that's what bubble sort is, right? It's a sorting algorithm, and it shows how fast they can operate. When you're actually a practitioner or writing beyond just the academic, beyond just to prove somebody that you know how something works or how a sorting algorithms work, then what you'll discover is the actual sorting algorithm is not particularly important to me as a regular developer. What I want to do in my code is I want to be able to go to Python and I want to say sort, or take a list of list is 3, 2, 1, and I want to say list sort, and I want that to be fast. That's what I care about. That's what you should care about. Like that, the reason that we sort stuff is we want to sort something for a purpose and then move on to the next thing. Now, that sort algorithm, and the one specifically to Python, it has a name that you probably don't know unless you've actually studied Python. It's called timsort. And it's called timsort because it's named after a guy named Tim. So you look up timsort, named after Tim Peters, who is a Python programmer. And this is a really fascinating algorithm. And what you would learn if you get into it is that it's a combination. It's actually multiple sorting algorithms that are combined together, and they're combined together because the real world data, like probabilistically, what kind of data needs to be sorted, was kind of the stuff that was factored in to this particular algorithm. So it's optimized for your average use cases. Now, it doesn't work best for every case, and so there's times where you might want a different sorting algorithm. That's totally fair. But for Python and its regular usage patterns, timsort is the thing you want. And the cool part is you don't have to ask for it. Like, it's just there in the language. The fact when you use the sort function or use sorted, ultimately somewhere under the covers, it's running through timsort, and it's going really fast, or as fast as it can reasonably go. So to answer your question, and I've been taking some Russian, but what is that? I'm sorry. My Russian's not strong enough to say your name properly. But I don't use bubble sort anywhere in my project. It uses timsort if it's going to use any sorting at all. Hironme, YouTube is my way to go. I am on Twitter as MB Layman, but I usually, like, if you have questions for me, this is the best way to answer. John, you said check the issues page. Check the issues of types or stubs. I'm curious what you meant there. Kirill. Yeah, okay. Yes. I'm super interested in learning more Russian, but I'm learning Chinese and Spanish and Russian, and my Russian is definitely the least developed of those languages. It is I'm learning languages to learn stuff that is like not the English alphabet, and I think there's something cool about seeing Cyrillic and seeing Chinese characters. If I was to ever pick up a fourth language, it would be probably Arabic. But I don't think I will. I don't think I have time. Okay. Oh, John. Yeah, I see your point. So, yeah, I'm torn on, is this just because somebody has forked this recently and they're less popular? I don't know. And this is showing up as, this is the django-stubs project. Great. I'm glad you followed me on Twitter. I share some. I've got a feed of tweets that go out that share a bunch of articles and stuff. So hopefully there's a bunch of stuff you can learn there. Where did types go? Django. Yeah. Okay. I think stubs is probably the one we want. So somebody forked this once upon a time. I don't know. Maybe there's value about doing this, but this is the kind of stuff that's like, I can appreciate what they're doing, but at the same time, it's a little like, why are you splitting the community's focus on different packages? Like, why don't you just make the other one better? Maybe there's a fundamental reason why they can't do it. With the goal of removing the MyPy plugin dependency so that MyPy can't crash due to Django config, and that MyPy checkers like PyWrite will work better with Django. What? This statement doesn't make sense. MyPy type checkers. PyWrite is not a MyPy type checker. It is a... Oh, I missed the non. Non-MyPy type checkers. Okay. So, but I would suspect that django-stubs being... These are not like... Maybe some of them are specific to MyPy, but... yeah, maybe it's just lesser value to PyWrite than a generic one. Kirill, what do I think of ChatGPT? And your English is fine, by the way. I think your question makes perfect sense. ChatGPT is interesting. I'm actually interested to try it. I want to experiment with, like, what kind of, can I write an article with it? And can I write a technical article? As a programming tool, I am doubtful. That's maybe the polite way of putting it. I see it as having a lot of potential power someday, but in the state that it's in, the thing I've heard about it is like, I don't know if you watch, who is it? Lex. So I watched a podcast with Lex Friedman. It was Lex Friedman and Guido van Rossum. So you go find this one. It's so 341. This is the one. And Guido van Rossum is the creator of Python, just in this context. So it's a lot of discussion about programming. And I think it was in this conversation, now I'm doubting myself, but about some use of AI. And I think it was in the context of GitHub Copilot, which is not ChatGPT, but a similar concept. And Guido was saying, like, yeah, I've been using Copilot to help me as I'm writing my own code. But the key that I picked up on is that Guido said something to the effect of, I use it as a starting point, and then I adjust things. Like Guido, as someone who's been programming for many, many years at this point, enough that he retired and then came back from retirement. Like he's a very, very long time programmer. Essentially noted that the solutions provided by these chat systems they're not 100% reliable. And the problem that I think someone who doesn't necessarily know how to program is going to have is that if you don't have that programming experience, you're not going to have the eye to know, is that right or is that wrong? And I think that's the real challenge with ChatGPT, is there are probably solutions that some of them can be right and great, especially things that are well established, like a bubble sort. Like I bet if you ask ChatGPT to do a bubble sort for you, it'd probably be a fantastic implementation of a bubble sort because it's so well known that sure, why not? But if you're asking it to write some code that's never been written before for a problem that's never been solved before, and it produces something, well, is it right? You'd have to look at it with a very critical eye. So that's my feeling on ChatGPT, is that I see there's a future there, and that's kind of my take. Haranbe, I don't have time to teach individuals like that. I do have tons of content that you can check out on YouTube. I have specific videos of Python by example. So if you're trying to learn Python that way, if you're trying to learn Django, I've got at this point hundreds of hours of streams that you're willing to check out, that you can check out. But I'm sorry, I can't offer one-on-one. Part of the reason I stream is to have an audience that can get this content later and do something that scales. I've taught some classes even to small groups, and it doesn't feel like a great use of my overall time. But you're very welcome, Krill. All right, so let's go. I'm going to decide on stay with django-stubs. It's clearly the one that is sponsored. It's got open collective stuff. It's got 185 contributors. This other one, when I dig down into it, it seems like it's handled by one person. So django-stubs it is. Let's get this going. Let's get it added to my project and see if it actually helps. So what do we need to do? So we've got django-stubs compatible MyPy. Oh, there's some actual work here. Okay, well, that's okay. What if they comment on Pyrite or other things? MyPy crashes when I run it with this plugin install. Ooh, that's not good. The current implementation uses Django runtime to extract information about models, so it might crash if your installed apps or models are broken. Okay, well, maybe that's not a big deal. Cannot use query set or manager with type annotations. You can get a type error. Type object is not subscriptable. This happens because these Django classes do not support class getItem. You can go with our django-stubs extension helper. Okay. Ew. I don't want to go too deep down this rabbit hole because I think there are probably things in here that are not going to be helpful. I'm looking for like the cheapest, quickest solution that I can get here. So I'm scanning through this to see if it's going to work. And I didn't see any mention of pyrite, which is a bummer. Or other type checkers. There are others. So let's see what it does. I also want to check, let's check the setup file to see what compatible MyPy means. So that should be in here. Nope. It's going to be in the setup.py, I guess. Compatible MyPy. So 098 to 999. What version of MyPy do I have? Ooh, man. Rabbit hole gets deeper. Requirements. Requirements dev. Okay, 991. All right, that's good. So we're ready to add this in the way that's specified, and we want the 1.13.1, I guess. So I'm going to go to my requirements dev file. And this one I don't have any, like, I don't need to run that through pip tools or anything. And so we need, what did they say? We need this. And I like to alphabetically sort them. So these are going to be django-stubs. So it's going to go here. And I want to do 1.13.1. Okay, so that should get the Python, the stubs version that we need. Let's install, whoops. Try it again. Oh, bugger. Oh, man. My version of MyPy is too new? Is that what you're saying? It needs to go less than... Really? So I'd actually have to downgrade MyPy in order to get this, is what I'm hearing from this thing. So, well, that's okay. It's only like a month old. So let's downgrade to 982. MyPy 982. I would go 990, but I think it said less than, John. Unless I misread it. I could have misread it. Yeah, it's got to be less than 990. So the 9901 directly won't work, sadly. Django is a web framework, so it's for making websites. It does everything to like render HTML, send it over to a user's browser, connects it to a database, which is what I'm trying to work through right now. So you've got like the concept of data that we need to model in database, and all that gets displayed to users as actual HTML pages. Okay, so now we've got django-stubs. Looks like it also installed the django-stubs extension. Interesting. So we need to make MyPy aware of a plugin. Did I put my MyPy config in PyProject? Py project. Yes, I did. So I use a Py project toml for my Py. And then just copy all that and we'll fiddle with it afterwards. So we've got a plugin, MyPy Django plugin, and django-stubs, the Django settings module. That should be project settings. That should do. Oh man, I might create a bunch of like errors and stuff that I'm gonna have to fix if I do this. Well, we'll see. Make MyPy. See if that. Guess we'll be lucky if all this passes. It does not. Sad. I didn't realize I was signing myself up for a project. Okay. Well, shoot. Let me just check. Let me confirm that this is what's causing that. Is it the... Let's comment that stuff out for a minute. And try make... Because so one of these should be clean. Oh. What? No way. No way. I have CI run this. Why is this showing so many results? What's going on? What did I do? Oh, boogers. All right, I'm pretty sure I do. That would be pretty disappointing if I've been leaving off MyPy for a long time. No, right there, make MyPy. So every time I check in, oh, no. All right, so what's the makefile running? It's just running MyPy homeschool project. What? Now I'm super confused. What's going on? Well, I think we found an interesting distraction that's going to prevent us from getting this feature. But I want to understand this. Why does so much stuff suddenly go bad? So we've got, I mean, any of these should be, I should be able to check one of these, like this bump certify, run tests. There should be check types. MyPy, homeschool, project, manage. No issues found in 218 source files. So why did this suddenly like blow up my face? SaaS stands for software as a service. So the fact that I run this online as a software that someone can sign up for and pay for is what makes it a service part. So I'm writing the software and then I run it as a service, and the service is available to anybody who wants to pay for homeschool stuff. So that's what it is. Okay. Now maybe my MyPy cache got, I'm struggling to think what happened there. So let's do this. I bet we have a MyPy cache. Yep, there it is. So let's try removing the MyPy cache. I'm going to rerun. So now I've got, we have the plugin installed, but I'm not using it here. So this should be okay. So if I run make MyPy, if I am so perplexed as to why that's doing that. Set up Python. Pip cache. We've got Those are operating system packages. Install packages. Now I've got like a mystery on my hands. Make sure I got my, so these are the install packages steps. So the second one should be the one that actually has packages I care about. Requirements and requirements dev. In this list should be MyPy. MyPy. It's gonna be, come on, MyPy. 991. All right. So maybe I can't imagine that a regression to that version of MyPy would have changed this. That much stuff. That seems weird. We can test it. So let's do this. I'm going to revert. Well, I'll just keep it in the requirements div. Keep it at 991. And do the install, bring it back to the other one. Right. Shoot. Invalid comment string. What? Okay. Something I gotta fix in Neovim later. Okay, we're back to the 991. I'm gonna remove the same MyPy cache and run make MyPy. Wow. Okay. I am very perplexed by what's going on. I wonder if just the mere presence of that MyPy Django plugin is causing some issue. So what if I do pip uninstall django-stubs? Yeah, get out of here. Let's remove all the MyPy cache again. And now I should, so MyPy Django plugin is the name of the package. So Python 3 MyPy Django plugin. Good, not there. Make MyPy. Okay. Well, that's interesting. So, how much do I want to commit to this? There are strategies to doing this that I could illustrate by adding this plugin that allows you to essentially progressively get better compliance over time and continue to have a working source tree at all times. So you really, we want that thing to pass no matter what. Clearly what I did and added made it break. So we need to have a strategy for how to selectively ignore stuff. And that is possible with MyPy. And I think I'm going to try that. I could also branch it. Yep, that's the other. You're right, John. That is the other strategy. So two strategies here. One strategy is the one John's talking about, which is create a branch, install the stuff, fix when I have the time, and then if I needed to fix anything in the meantime, then I could go do that on the main and just like merge back to the branch whenever I have changes. That is certainly a strategy. The strategy I was thinking of is like, what do you do when you want to do this progressively? Because maybe you're on a big project. So part of me wants to demonstrate this just because even though my example was what was that, like 90 errors? There was something. It was not a gigantic number. 164 errors. Well, it's not small, but it's not insurmountable. But if you had a huge project and you're trying to add type checks to it for the first time, the branching strategy, while it would work, it carries with it a certain risk. Anytime you have a long-running branch from your source control, there's the potential for it to diverge. And as you're fixing stuff, and somebody else is, especially if you're working on a team, if someone else is fixing it too, then or making other changes, then your changes might become incompatible. So what I've done with a number of tools in my career, MyPy included, is found ways to check in a configuration, and the pattern is essentially this: check in a configuration, get the list of everything that's broken, and then selectively ignore and disable all the broken stuff until you get back to everything passing. And so then you have like a deny list of here are all the things that I know are broken right now, and I need to get through it and burn that down to zero, and over time fix my problems and enable them. And with doing that strategy, it allows you to, over time, get to a ratcheted up higher and higher level of quality on your system, and allows your teammates to continue to do stuff as well. Because what happens with the branch strategy as well is this is a case where a code quality checking tool, a type checker, MyPy, is going to find things. And if you can check it in early with some checks, then every check that you've added will be things, especially if you've added it to CI, things that your teammates will not be able to violate in the future. So because it's going to get kicked out by your integration system to say, no, this is not allowed, you have to fix this. So it essentially stems the problem from diverging even more, creating more violations. So you want to like add in those little checks, and over time, it keeps everybody compliant, and the only way to go is to become more compliant, and so fewer issues. That's why I was going down. So that's the benefit of that strategy versus the branch. You're right, John, that a branch would be a very straightforward and very reasonable way to do this. I think I'm going to do the strategy I talked about, not because I'm on a big team, but because I don't know when I'll be able to stream again, so I don't know how long I'll have this. And I think in that intervening time, I suspect that there will be Dependabot PRs and other things that will be coming in from like bot teammates, I suppose, that I don't think would have any impact on too much, but they might actually. So the next time Dependabot runs, it's going to want to upgrade MyPy. And so if I'm pinning to an older version of MyPy to get this django-stubs version support, then yeah, I want to keep that older version pinned, and I don't want Dependabot to update that. But Dependabot won't know to try or to skip updating it unless it sees that django-stubs is in my requirements and it has that version conflict. Because it only tries to upgrade things that it knows won't be in conflict with other dependencies. So I think because of that, I want to go with the strategy of switching to this. So I think, what was it, 982? Is that right? Yeah. So let's do this. Let's install those things again. I'm gonna even like leave this stuff turned off for a moment. Although I don't know if it'll, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll turn it on and just get the full list and then go pare it down from there. Yeah, that seems wise. Let's do that. And let's do the install. So we've gone down to the django-stubs. Now we're going to run make MyPy. We should get a bunch of failures. Okay, 94. So it's actually a smaller number. So when we had it configured to use the thing, it was saying 164 when it wasn't turned on, and 94 when it was. So there's a big jump. So I'm actually glad that we turned it on. So what I'm going to do now is work through this and selectively turn off certain items. And the challenge is I need to remember, how do we scope it to certain types? No, it's even like detecting new stuff. There might be things that we can fix that are quick wins that maybe I just forgot. So we've got all auth in here, but I'm pretty sure I'm missing some stuff here. Got all auth account, but not all auth social account. And all auth account models. Okay, so let's change this to models and then do another one for social account models. That should knock out, anytime you see these like, this is missing, it may be in fact be missing, because not all Python code chooses to use type annotations. So it's very likely that you have some libraries that just aren't using it at all, and can't help you. So with those, your best option is to say, okay, I give up. And so this is ignoring all of these modules is what's happening here. So let's run that and see what it brings the number down to. This is kind of iterative process. So it only dropped out 2. I think those were the only ones that I saw that were missing. Ooh. Import cycle. Maybe this looks like a category error here. Import cycle from Django settings module prevents type inference for Slack webhook. Okay, tell me more. Search for it. Well, I can tell you that the French settings topic on the Django project is not going to have the answer. Not a good link from Google there. Import settings. This is very generic about Django settings. We're pretty deep in the weeds here on type errors. And like we're on type stuff for Django, which is not a common thing to do. We might not get a lot of help from the internet here. So I'm trying to remember how to ignore things. MyPy ignore. We could do ignores on individual lines, which I don't really like to do, but I might be able to do that. You could either ignore at the module level, or you can add type ignores to individual lines. And ignoring at the module level is kind of like saying, I'm not ready to do this whole file or module yet. Since I was at a point where I was doing the entire code, it might make more sense to put a type ignore on these individual lines and then attach a particular number with them. So let's try that. So let's do a new issue, and we'll say fix MyPy errors detected when django-stubs was added. Do it. Now we have a number, 762. And because putting a type ignore by itself is just basically saying I give up. So you want to put a comment with it to validate it. And so we can go now through this list. We might even be able to do this. Can we do it directly from that code? Like if I go to the students models, do I have MyPy installed? I don't. Hold on. Mason. And then we want MyPy. I'm going to install MyPy. Whoops. Install it. I don't know that it'll apply right away though. The diagnostic argument missing from for preliminary class. What? Okay. Well, we're not getting the error information from MyPy yet, although that's because I just installed it. I'm going to try one more thing. Let's restart Neovim, go to the student models file, and see if MyPy will detect it once the language server gets up and running. I think the language server has to run first. So you can see in the bottom right corner over here, it's doing Pyrite. Pyrite is starting up, and it's processing all the files. And once that's going, then it will be ready to handle all of my Python files, which should then run it through any particular linters or type checkers that I have. But what I want to do is say, that was line 26 on that models file. That's here. And what I was complaining about is the fact that I use a settings field, and I used it early. So it was trying to do some it didn't like the fact that I was using the module when it was in the classes still. So I was going for a delayed evaluation. But it was not a fan of that. Okay. The way to solve that is probably with a constant, but I don't want to solve all of those right now. Let's say type ignore. And I think the format is 2 spaces and another 2 spaces, and then I can give whatever comment I want. So I'm just going to add these with 762. Or no, I need issue 762. Now, will that fix this? Oops. Make MyPy. Whoa. Chill out. Stop. Stop. It did. Okay. All right. So I've been streaming for quite a while, and I think it's going to take a length of time to get all this done, but it's going to be pretty mundane. There are ways that I can go faster with this that I might try later or might try off stream, but I'll point out what the method is, and then you can think about this. So the format here is in a structure that a tool like Vim or like Neovim should be able to process. It's a file name path and a colon and a line number and another colon. And this is a standard style in a way that could be processed and put into a quick list. So when I'm in my editor, and let's say I do a search for, I don't know, learner, which is in that doc string right there. This thing that you're seeing right here is the quick fix list, excuse me. And it's a place where you can like quickly, as the name implies, go through different entries. So if I wanted to search for, say, query set, I would get a bunch of them. And they're all going to have a column, or a line and a column in this case. So I can find exactly where I am in the query set, and then I can just go through them with some shortcuts that I have. And I have another plugin that allows me to do bulk edits in here. So what I can do is I can take that MyPy input and pump it into the quick fix list, and then do a bulk edit at that time. Maybe I should just try. It's something I've done many times, but I don't remember how to do it. Let's see. External, okay. Neovim, external command to quick fix list. Vim redirect output to quick fix. That looks like it. Use make program. Yeah, here it is. Because it's really awkward. So C expression, and this is something that I would not expect any of you to know, because I also always forget how to do this. Looks like, why is this one the selected answer? Let's try it. So let's close that. Let's do new, what do they say? Pipe 0 read. And then bang. Yeah, %:R. I don't need that. I think I just need make MyPy. That might do it. No. Well, it tried to. Maybe it was closer than I thought. Let's try it one more time. New pipe 0 read. So at this point, I'm just like cargo culting though. I don't actually know what I'm doing. It doesn't have my path. All right, there's got to be some other way to do it. So that's the general idea though, is there is a way to feed the output of that command directly into a quick fix list that would allow me to go line by line. And once I'm there, then I could do a bulk operation on all of those lines at once, even though it was an external tool that was providing the lines. So that format that looks kind of weird at first is actually really powerful once you realize what it's doing. And I just don't have a good example. It's probably something that when I do figure it out, I should write it down somewhere, because I will probably need it again in the future. And I don't know, maybe I try this one. I'll do this one more time, this thing, and see if it works. So that one looks like it might work. But the other thing that's happening here as well is that there might be some stuff with when I'm calling this, it might not be passing along my path. So it may be what it's complaining about. I don't need to do any shell escaping on this one. Yeah, same problem. So I can't put it on my quick fix list because it's not finding the MyPy Django plugin. That's too bad. So as soon as I can figure out a way to copy this output and pump it directly into the quick fix list, maybe that's the solution. Let's do that. Let's do one more time. Let's take this make MyPy and let's output it to I'll just call it quick qf.txt. And then I'm going to do Vim quick fix and take off the top line and take off the bottom line because those aren't quick fix things. And then over here, I'm going to call that C expression thing and do system, and I'll try to do cat on that quick fix txt. And C open. C open. Oh, cool. There it is. Okay. Oh, it's not quite as easy as doing a bulk edit down here too. So we've got the line now. This is the line where the error showed up. All right, now I got a second win. I'm gonna let this go. And sorry, I'm checking something out really quickly. Okay, so here is where this gets a little tricky. So I want to do kind of a trick that I learned with like Vim macros. So with a macro, a Vim macro is just a recording of keystrokes that you can play over and over again. So I'm going to start a macro, but the cool part about this macro that I'm going to use is that it's going to call itself. And that way it will loop to by calling itself and going to the next item, it will go through each thing in this list here and should apply them all. It doesn't really make sense until I'm done. So I start by going into a macro buffer and telling it to record and then stop. And it's basically I want an empty macro. And so then I want to start the macro, which I start with Q, and I use a macro buffer name Q. So I say Q, Q. So now you can see it says I'm recording at Q down there. So it's paying attention to all my keystrokes at this point. And so the thing that I want is I want to say, I want to do capital A to go to the end of the line, and I want to do space, space, and it's recording every single one of these keystrokes. Type, ignore, space, space, issue, 762, and then escape, and then I want to write the file, and then I want to call, no. Then what I want to do is go to the next entry in the quick fix list, which is here. And then I want to call the macro, which is with @q. And then I want to stop recording. So what's going to happen is the macro is all recorded that way. And it's going to run all the commands that were in there. And at the very end, it's going to call the macro, which is going to make it jump back. And if I did it right, it should go through the entire quick fix list as a one thing, and it will give an error at the last one, but that should be okay. So now the recording is done. So now I should be able to say @q, and it did a lot of work. Oh, but I might not have worked. All right. Let's see how many it worked for. So that one had applied to it twice. Maybe there's some lines that had multiple problems on it, which might be the case. But you can see that that little trick seemed to do most of what I want. Now, if I come back through and make my pie, with any luck, most of those lines will be gone. Well, it took out a bunch of them, so there clearly is more to do. And it wasn't perfect, but I went from 90-something to 30-something with one little macro. All right, I got to end it there. I'm fried, and this is about as far as I can go. and hopefully you saw some cool stuff along the way. But thank you for joining in, and it's been entertaining. Thank you for the good questions. Hopefully you learned something this evening. It'll be a while before I stream again because, as I said, they're going to be doing some work in my basement. So I will put out some recordings or do something in the meantime. Maybe I'll do some podcast recording, which is something I can do without all of the AV setup. Get back to Django riffs and record some stuff there. But it's been fun. Appreciate your time, and have a good evening. Take care.